Okay, as I was telling you, I'll try and be brief tonight because we also have time for part of this talk will be given tomorrow anyway, so we're not in a rush. You know? So we've been trying to have this sort of underlying, aim in this series of talk, which is to present a sort of the core teachings of the Buddha, so that people might be inclined to maybe watch or listen again to these videos and recordings and have these basic informations about why we do the things we do here. There is a reason. And sometimes it's not possible to talk about these things during usual Dharma talks and stuff like that. Anyway, as almost a final talk to this series, tonight's talk is about the relevance of the Buddha's teaching in today's world. That means we may have the question, like, it's all well and good, but, the Buddha lived like 2,600 years ago. Many things have changed in the meanwhile. Science has been discovering new things, and the world has changed so much. Technologies, social medias, and stuff. So is actually the Buddha's teaching still useful today for our own lives? And the answer is yes, of course. We will try and see why. To see why, we can see that the Buddha made the distinctive, the unique aim of his teaching to be enlightenment and liberation from samsara. And that's the round of repeated birth and death, to which ordinary beings are bound by their greed, hatred, and delusion. We've seen about these things in all the other talks, so I won't go into details about these things. But first of all, we must realize that even though the aim is very precise, to put an end to suffering, to dukkha, and according to the Buddha, there is a reason why we suffer, and that reason is tanha, basically craving, and the underlying, forces that, push us this way or that other way are greed, anger, and delusion. And so if we want to get free from suffering, we have to get rid of greed, anger, and delusion. And this, path to freedom, which is the ultimate goal of the Buddhist practices, which is called the Noble Eightfold Path, usually is not practiced by everyone who, defines himself or herself as a Buddhist. So we can say that Buddhism, or the teaching of the Buddha, actually can have like the purpose of promoting three kinds of benefits. First benefit is in this very life, right here, right now. Second kind of benefit, possible future lives, if we are inclined to believe in such things. And the ultimate goal we have seen is to put an end to this cycle of birth and rebirth. For the first aim, like benefits in this present life, that means the good that can be realized right here, right now. And that includes personal well-being, inner happiness, wholeness, a state of inner mental health, as well as social well-being. being. So, it's for the single person and for the community. To promote this kind of harmony between people, peaceful relationships, just relationships within people and within societies and communities, what is, advised by the Buddha is basically the practice of morality, sila. So whether we believe in future lives or not, by the practice of sila in this very life, we can achieve a personal well-being, including mental health and that sort of stuff, as well as promoting well-being among people and among societies. So we do not actually have to believe in future lives, rebirth, and that sort of stuff. Of course, it's the exact same thing that promotes future rebirth, sila again. So, sort of behavioral code. What's quite interesting about Buddhism, and that's the idea of the Buddha actually, that we have to understand, not believe, but understand. So it's not a belief system. We know that the Buddhist practices are basically very practical. It's agnostic. We could define it as a way of knowledge, of understanding, not a way of faith, actually. We have to understand that there are principles, underlying system of laws that govern the process of rebirth. And this basic principle, according to the Buddha, is ethics. But these ethics are a kind of objective moral order that we have to be able to discern, to discover. That means that this basic ethic of the universe is not a product of societies or particular religious systems or anything like that. According to the Buddha, there is an underlying universal moral law to the universe. And that is to be discovered through the practice. So it's not something that we make up or create, but it's already there, inbuilt into the universe. So it's a way of discovery, basically. And that sort of practice is called the Noble Eightfold Path. In its fullness. And so, even though these are practices that the Buddha taught fundamentally for monks and nuns, they are not in any way sort of sealed off with a label on them, like for monks and nuns only. Lay people do not apply. Please do not touch. No, we can do them as well, and we can put them into practice in our own daily life. So, if you take up and set aside periods of practice in mindfulness, of breathing, observation of the feelings, observation of the states of mind, then you are practicing right mindfulness. You are practicing that key element in the Noble Eightfold Path, which is also the practice that monastics take up. So in a way, when we are in retreat, and we keep the 5 precepts or the 8 precepts, and we take up the practice of right mindfulness, we become monastics for a while. That's quite interesting, in a way. There is no discernible difference. Okay, monastics have more than 5 precepts, of course. But basically, the ethical code and the way we go about doing things is just about the same. Okay, of course, if we are monastics, we have the benefit that maybe in our own daily lives we can spend more time during these things. That's not always the truth, but that's the gist of it, basically, But that doesn't mean that we cannot do that if we are lay people. You can absolutely do that if you are lay people. You can practice the Noble Eightfold Path in its fullness. It's up to us, actually, what we want to do with it, But if we look at it in the Buddhist discourses, in any case, in this present life, future lives and rebirths, the desire to get out of this cycle of rebirth and, out of samsara, basically. All these teachings are directed towards the achievement both of one's own good and the good of others. That's ever present as an aim. Why are you practicing? To achieve your own good and the good of others. And to make this thing more clear, there is a discourse of the Buddha where he talks about 4 kinds of people. The first one is one who is living and practicing neither for his own welfare nor for the welfare of others. Number 2, one who is practicing for the welfare of others but not for his own welfare. Number 3, one who is practicing for his own welfare but not for the welfare of others. And number 4, one who is practicing both for his own welfare and for the welfare of others. Of these 4, the one that the Buddha praises the most and sort of sets up as a model is the one who is practicing both for his own welfare and for the welfare of others. Of course, when we are talking about welfare, we are not just talking about, material things, For example, giving money to people who are in need of money or things like that. But we can be generous with our time by giving what is called a listening heart to other people. Being present with no judgment. Just being present, listening. We don't have to have all the answers, of course. It's just being this listening presence. That's the idea. And of course, very many other things. So, this kind of generosity takes very many different forms. But at its core, it's just our own welfare and the welfare of others, Because by practicing in a certain way, by helping other people, we are helping ourselves. By helping ourselves, we are helping other people. By practicing meditation, we are not just liberating ourselves from greed, anger, and delusion, but this kind of freedom sort of spills out from us, With each encounter we have, with each person we meet, the way we behave in in various areas of our own lives. In a way, it's always this listening presence, which can be within or without. Without means outside. In proper English. So we start by listening inside ourselves. The usual stuff, rising, falling, sitting, touching, mind states, feelings, thoughts, this sort of thing. And that becomes a habit actually, It's after a while, you just do it. You're just more present. This sort of attitude just gets projected outside. It's not really possible to have this listening attitude towards others if we haven't really practiced it within ourselves beforehand. It doesn't really last that long. So it's not really either sincere or, doesn't have a very long life. Let's put it this way. Yeah, right, but after a while it gets, boring. But since we have lots of practice of listening inside, for example, these nagging thoughts in our own minds come again, and again, retreat after retreat, year after year. We get lots of practice with that, we know how to deal with that, this boring thought, this nuisance. I've had enough of this, it's again. Haven't we seen this enough already? No. More of it. Okay. What do we do? Oh, okay. Patience. Space. Okay. Get into the body. Okay. Rising, falling. Okay. And then it's gone. Comes again. Damn. Again, you practice with it patiently for a long time, with no expectations, no interruptions. And then we become very good at it. It's just something you do. It's that old thought again. Okay. It's not such a disgrace anymore. There is less of that, it shouldn't be like this, it should be more like that, maybe just a little bit. That gap that we call dukkha, because dukkha is actually that gap between the way things are and the way we would like them to be. It's a very ancient, deep ingrained habit in the mind and the heart, But thanks to the practice, we start seeing that again and again and again. And imagine that. By seeing that in yourself, you start recognizing that in other people. And if you start recognizing that in other people, you are safe. You know who to avoid, or to whom be in company with, for example. Because, let's be clear, inner practice is something really powerful. It will change us whether we like it or not. So when we get out there, we may discover that our way of relating to people, situations, things has changed. And maybe we can discover that we actually prefer to be in the company of certain people and other people, quite frankly, we might as well do without. So, that may require slowly, little by little, a change of friendships, habits, things we enjoy doing or not doing. But bear in mind, this is not something to be seen as a sort of a sacrifice. This is a byproduct of the practice. Very simply, you will prefer to drop certain things and to pick up other things. Not because you're particularly good or anything like that, because maybe through the practice we start seeing deeper inside things, the way things really are. And very naturally, we may decide to drop a few things in our own lives, and we will not miss them that much. Or not at all. Or the other way around. Having to be with those same old things, people, habits, becomes heavy, a burden. Really not so pleasurable anymore. And we let them go. Happily. With no discomfort. It's not a sacrifice. Being with those things would be a sacrifice. So, you see, we don't have to put the cart before the horse. If practice comes first. As usual, of course. You all know about these things. Out of the practice, different habits, likes, dislikes. It's a big change, but it happens little by little. Not all in big blog or something. It's just this very fine mist, that year after year just soaks you up, and you come out dripping with metta for everybody. No, not really. It's just, you know what I mean. It's just a very slow process of deep change. So, don't be surprised if you find yourself a bit changed when you come out of a retreat, because that means practice is actually working. It's actually, these things are really powerful. Even if, when we are in retreat, we don't really realize that. We do the same things day after day. I mean, walking, sitting, walking. Bit of metta here and there. Dhamma talk, eating, going to sleep. Again, the same stuff. Day after day after day after day. And we might even start enjoying it. Imagine that. To the point that we might actually prefer being here than being someplace else. Who would have thought that? Crazy, huh? Seen from the outside. It's a bit strange, you actually like to be silent all day? Yeah. Like, not listening to other people, telling you the usual nonsense. Yeah, I actually love it. I don't have to listen to that nonsense all the time. That's great. Fantastic. It's so inner practice is really powerful, can be beneficial in this very life, in future lives, or if we are so inclined, get out of this nonsense altogether. Sooner or later. It's called get out of samsara. This endless cycle of death and rebirth. Through this cycle of endless dukkha. So, basically, it's always useful to practice. And we are so very happy about it. So for tonight's talk, I guess it's enough. We can stop the recordings and things. And maybe, just maybe,